Thank you for tuning in to the Keeping It Real with KC podcast, a no judgment zone podcast that covers lifestyle, entertainment, news, and sports. Even though KC doesn't watch sports, but these are minor details. By the way, he reads tarot cards too. Yes, I really mean it. He reads tarot cards too. And now, the host you've tuned in for, KC Phoenix.
Welcome back to the Keeping It Real with KC podcast. I, of course, am your host, KC Phoenix. Okay, now, I am doing my best I got to cover this story. There's going to be so many caveats to this story, but before I go any further, KIRWKC.com, main podcasting platform. This podcast is carried on Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Overcast, Bullhorn, Amazon Music, Audible, and several other podcasting platforms. Please feel free to listen to this podcast on whatever platform is most convenient for you. KIRWKC on all the social media platforms. With this story, I mentioned it before in passing. I covered the the story where the person got a refund because their ice cream was too cold. And I mentioned in passing that I planned on doing an article about these two Brazilian politicians that actually stepped into the ring to settle a disagreement. Now, first thing is, because like I said, I have to do a lot of caveats here. First caveat is I do not endorse violence. However, just because we don't endorse violence, that doesn't mean some days people wake up and choose violence. So it is what it is. The second thing about this is that one thing I talk about on my podcast is a no politics zone. And I really don't like discussing politics because politics is so polarizing. So I'm making an exception for this particular situation. For one, it was really interesting because I've never seen this. And this happened a couple of weeks ago. This incident happened a couple of weeks ago. And I thought it was interesting that, wow, they really decided to just go ahead and do this. And then the other thing is I haven't covered a sports episode in forever. And I was like, you know what? This could be one of the sports episodes that I could go ahead and do that. So I consider this one of the sports episodes too. With all of that being said, let's go ahead and get into the article of these two Brazilian politicians. Shout out to Brazil, because yes, I have people in Brazil that listen to my podcast. So shout out to Brazil. Oh boy. All right. So title of this article, which I found on Oddie. I find a lot of my odd articles, my crazy articles on Oddie. Brazilian politicians settle water park dispute in MMA ring. When two politicians got tired of debates, their fists started talking. It says politics can be pretty boring. Endless hours of debates, negotiations, meetings, committees. Recently, though, two Brazilian politicians brought some action into politics. They decided to speak soft and punch hard. Samayo Peixoto, the mayor of Borba in north central Brazil, and the town's ex-councilor, Erinu da Silva, I keep on adding the A's, Erinu da Silva, have been at each other's throats for a while. To settle their dispute, the two men stepped into the MMA ring. At the center of their feuding is a water park in Borba. Silva, also known by his nickname, Marico, has been accusing Peixoto for failing to preserve the attraction. Marico, 45, hasn't minced words in calling Peixoto out, calling him a rotter and a crook, according to The Guardian. Recently, he demanded Peixoto, 39, come out and settle the matter with his fist, if he's man enough. There's a lot of what's the word? Machismo, I think is the word. Machismo is the word going on here. But for lack of a better word, we'll just say a lot of ego. All right. In an online video, Pacheco said he was more than ready to take Mariko on. Show your face, he declared. Some of his voters, however, felt that a mayor shouldn't get into a brawl and be more diplomatic. You think? In response, supposedly after he'd cooled down some, Pacheco clarified his intentions. I'm not a street fighter. I'm the mayor of the I can get the words out, of the municipality of Borba, he said on Facebook in November. But if he really wants to fight, we're ready to fight. I've always been a winner, Pacheco added. Out for blood. As it turns out, Mariko really wanted to fight. On December the 12th, the two political rivals climbed into the ring at a local school. The two were appropriately clad in shorts and gloves for the crowd of hundreds that had come to see the fight. Out of the duo, Pacheco seemed to be really out for blood. According to local reports, the mayor, with a towel emblazoned with the word Jesus or Jesus around his neck, marched twice over to Mariko's corner. Both times he swiped his fingers across his throat. Wow, is it really that serious? For once, we don't have to try and guess what a politician's statement actually meant. All right, ready, fight. The 3-round fight finally commenced. According to Vice, Mariko started aggressively by delivering low kicks to Pacheco's legs. Growing tired of having his shins kicked, Pacheco delivered a right jab to the ex-counselor's face, knocking him to the ground. He proceeded to jump on his down rival, pinning him down and delivering several more punches. But all that managed to do was piss Mariko off. In a surprise move, he flipped Pacheco to the floor and started raining punches on the mayor. The first round lasted for several more punches and kicks until the referees pulled them apart. Both were clearly not accustomed to fighting, since Pacheco and Mariko were both already reeling and out of breath. But there were still 2 more rounds to go. Winner by technicality. The following rounds were nowhere near as energetic as the first one, according to reports. Both contestants got more and more tired, and their punches got increasingly sloppy. Still, Mariko managed to pull ahead, delivering quite a whopping to the mayor. The mayor took such a beating, his jaw dropped. Okay, hold on, I have to wait to see it. Fato Amazonico. I think I got that right. Anybody who's listening in Brazil, don't hold it against me. All right. At the end of round 3, Pacheco was so messed up that he could barely walk. It seemed Mariko had defeated his opponent. However, the judges disagreed. In the end, they declared Pacheco the winner for having scored more points. The crowd clearly wasn't pleased with the result. A stitch up, they shouted, according to Fato Amazonico. It seems, though, that the rival politicians had found a sportsmanlike respect for each other. After the match, they shook hands, hugged, and exchanged a few hushed words before leaving the ring. A hostile environment. So did the fight settle the dispute over the water park? We don't know yet, but that remains unlikely. If anything, many in Brazil see the punching match as evidence of the increasingly antagonistic nature of Brazilian politics. And it's no surprise the country's president, Bolsonaro, has done his best to fuel division in Brazil. This is what politics in Brazil has become of late. It's frightening. We become the Wild West, one Brazilian tweeted. The Pacheco-Mariko match wasn't the only political brawl on the day in Brazil either. According to reports, the bodyguards and supporters of Brazilian President Bolsonaro attacked journalists on the same day. at least Pacheto and Mariko fought in a regulated environment. Hopefully, they can continue their debate in a more civil manner now that they have let out some steam. Okay, so that is the story of how this happened. Now, here is my commentary on all of this. This is one of those things, you're laughing, but you know it's wrong. In the sense of, oh boy. I honestly believe that violence should be a last resort, as in you do not have a choice. That's the thing about me. I'm so weird when it comes to that type of stuff. I'm not really an in-between person when it comes to that. My default is always peace. It's like, what's the point of fighting? We're adults. We have brains. At least one would think that we have brains. So why can't we just negotiate, talk this out, and see where we can take this? The other side of me, which is the other extreme, because one extreme is, it's about peace. The other extreme is, okay, if you force someone in a corner, they don't have any choice, then I believe anything goes. I don't believe in quarter. I don't believe in mercy. I don't believe in any of that stuff because the situation was forced. Now, as a person on the outside looking in and being objective, one thing I will say is that I can't frown upon it too much because both parties agreed. If it was a situation where, let's say, I don't know if you remember, I believe this happened in Taiwan, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure it was Taiwan. It was this big fight that happened on, I guess, their Congress floor or whatever. This was years ago. And it was like a whole brawl. Everybody was fighting everyone. It was crazy. You have to look it up. And one of those things where people just start fighting. No. That I don't condone, which I don't condone violence, period. But with this situation, both of them agreed to the match. And it was I don't want to say regulated, because there's another word I want to use. What is the word? There's another word I want to use. It's on the tip of my tongue. Give me a second. Hold on. I'm going to get some backup, I hope, in a minute. Organized. Thank you. This was more organized is what it was. So it wasn't a thing where somebody just comes out the blue and does something to someone else and it's happening in the street or something of that nature. This was something saying, you know what? We can't seem to come to an understanding. So how about we take this in the ring? And the other person was like, okay, bet, let's do it. Let's go into the ring. And the people in Borba, I believe I'm pronouncing the city correctly. Again, people in Brazil, if you're listening to this, don't hold it against me. But with that, there you had some people who were like, okay, wait a second, you're the mayor. We really don't want you throwing hands. We would rather you use your pen and do that instead, or your words, the things that you speak. However, since this is organized, all right, fine. Because if everyone was totally against it, then they would have boycotted the event. They would have just been like, we're not going to participate in this circus. But they didn't do that. People showed up and they were like, okay, let's let them have it out and see who wins. And the interesting thing about it is that regardless if there is a resolution about this water park, which I still don't see how it got that serious to where it had to come to blows over a water park. Maybe I need to go to Borba myself. I've always wanted to visit Brazil anyway and go to Borba myself and see this water park that they're talking about. But I would really, really think that you would just want to talk it out. However, they went into the ring and they both agreed. And afterwards, it's kind of like they were cool, is the type of thing. It was more like, I guess I'm playing psychiatrist for a second, is what I'm doing, which I kind of feel like a psychologist, because, psychologists can't prescribe, psychiatrists can, as in medications and stuff. But I usually play that because, for those who don't know, my astrological sign is Cancer, and we sort of are the psychologists of the zodiac, because everyone wants to tell us all of their issues and come to us for advice, but these are minor details. I will say that as for relieving stress, where one person may go see an actual psychologist or a psychiatrist or some type of therapist, and they may say, oh, this individual has me so stressed out. They're not doing their job. They are making my job more difficult. They are not hearing what I'm saying. And of course, then it's that psychiatrist, therapist, psychologist job to talk them off the ledge from snapping on someone. That's what they do. And then they give them the exercises that they've been trained to give to people to keep someone from snapping. Apparently, there aren't that many psychologists or psychiatrists or whatever, therapists in Brazil, because this was the way for them to come off of the ledge. Even though there was violence involved in this whole situation, it could have been a lot worse. And that's why I'm going back to a challenge was made and a challenge was accepted. That's why I can't just, wag the finger. And this podcast is a no judgment zone anyway. You know me, I don't judge anyone, because who am I to judge? I'm not that authority. Nobody is that authority. We can't judge anyone. I can have an opinion, but I can't judge. And being on the outside looking in, I at least respect that it was an organized event. I don't agree with choosing violence. However, I respect it was organized. And quiet as it's kept, what they could have done is charge a little bit of something and do that, because maybe I missed it in the article, or maybe there's other articles floating around. This is the only one that I read. But maybe they could have charged just a little bit of money, just a small piece, and then take that money and give it to a charity or something, or donate it to, I don't know how much it would cost to fix the water park or whatever, or to see, I don't know how things work in Brazil. I don't know their political systems. I don't know their regulations or their laws in Brazil. This is just me brainstorming and throwing stuff out loud. Or see if there were companies that were willing, because it was already organized. That's the thing. This was organized. It was an organized fight. This was not a fight out in the street, in the parking lot somewhere. This was an organized fight. So, and see if start selling sponsorships and stuff. You already knew the event was happening. Those little pamphlets that you give out to people at events? They don't really do it anymore because everything's electronic these days. But for the most part, those little pamphlets, they could say, okay, you can buy an ad for $25 because we're going to have X amount of people, or X amount of people is expected to be at the event. Do you want to advertise in this? And make it a huge thing. Make as much money as possible off of it, and then maybe take that money and donate it to helping fix something, not the whole thing, because I'm sure to fix a water park or to do whatever is probably expensive, but maybe to fix one key thing with the water park and take care of that, or donate it to a totally different charity. But, hey, what do I know? I'm just throwing some thoughts out there. But for this, okay, I see you, Brazil. That's all I have. KIRWKC.com, main podcasting platform. This podcast is carried on Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Overcast, Bullhorn, Amazon Music, Audible, and several other podcasting platforms. Please feel free to listen to this podcast on whatever platform is most convenient for you. KIRWKC on all the social media platforms. Until next time, be blessed.